Hey guys, tonight we follow the footsteps of a Viking, but not the pillaging, torch-wielding kind. Nope, this one trades in his fur cloak for linen robes and his long ship for a vineyard under the Sicilian sun. Picture this, a grizzled Norse warrior, once hardened by northern storms, now squinting into the Mediterranean light, trying to figure out what olives even are. You stand on the deck of a creaking wooden ship, sails bulging in the wind, the cold salt air biting at your face. Around you, other Norsemen laugh and yell, hurling salty jokes into the sea spray. But you're not just along for the ride, you're following a pull, a weird itch that says maybe life doesn't always have to smell like wet bear hide and smoked fish. You've heard rumors, warm lands, fruit that grows year-round, women who don't have to chip ice to wash their hair, and wine. Glorious, endless, non-honey-based wine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Drop that in the comments below. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've left behind the fjords of Norway with their towering cliffs and moody skies. You remember the scent of pine smoke and seal fat, the way your boots always seem to stay wet no matter what. But now you're sailing south, far beyond the usual raid zones, past England, past France, past the lands the other Vikings called good enough. You, though, you're going all the way. Ahead lies a place you've only heard about in sailors' tales, Sicily. An island of contradictions, sunlight and shadows, palaces and pomegranate groves. And it's hot. So hot your skin feels like it's melting under your helmet. You take it off, immediately regret it. The sun scorches your scalp like Thor's own frying pan. You arrive in Palermo and it's nothing like the smoky, muddy towns back north. Marble, music, minarets. The air smells like lemons and roasted lamb. It's beautiful, it's overwhelming, it's also kind of sticky. You're sweating in places you didn't know you had. Your boots slap against tiled streets as you walk past vendors yelling in Arabic, Greek, Latin, and things you're pretty sure are just made up curse words. You watch a boy juggle pomegranates next to a blind oud player singing something mournful. A parrot screams insults in Arabic from a window. You blink. You're not in Bergen anymore. People stare at you. You're a walking stack of muscles, metal, and confusion. A tall, blonde anomaly in a city of sun-bronzed locals. Someone calls you Barbarossa, which is flattering until you learn it means red beard. You don't even have a red beard. You're not sure who they're talking about. You try to blend in, which is impossible. You learn your first Sicilian phrase, fa caldo, or it's hot. You say it about 20 times a day, mostly while panting. You meet a merchant who speaks broken Norse. He once traded walrus ivory in Denmark, he says. He calls you Sigurd, like an old friend. You don't correct him, it sticks. From then on, you're Sigurd, the not quite right. Viking, you ask about work. The merchant laughs. Everyone's at war, you'll be rich by Tuesday. Which sounds promising, if a bit ominous. You sell your sword to the highest bidder, a local emir with a soft voice and suspiciously well-manicured hands. He pays in coins that smell faintly of incense. You nod like you understand local politics. You do not. You eat dates for the first time. They're sticky, too sweet, and addictive. You try a fig, then a second fig, then 5. You learn the hard way that figs are not to be trifled with, digestive-wise. You sleep under a tiled roof that doesn't leak. A cat purrs beside you, watching, Your every move like it suspects you might eat its fish. You wouldn't, probably. At night, you lie awake, staring at the painted ceiling. You hear the city hum, a blend of laughter, hooves on stone, distant flutes, and someone arguing in Latin. It's beautiful and so strange. You wonder what your brother would say if he saw you now. Probably something like, "You got soft, but you're not soft, just sun-kissed and a little lost." Historians still argue whether Norse warriors like you came to Sicily as hired blades or political pawns, but one thing's for sure. You're here. You're staying. And maybe, just maybe, this is where your real story begins. You trudge through the citrus-scented alleyways of Palermo, sword still strapped to your back, though it feels more ornamental now than useful. The city hums around you, a web of languages and smells and colours that don't know what to make of you. Or maybe they do. Maybe they see a man not unlike themselves. Half exile, half adventurer, all sweat. You came south with visions of gold, glory and women feeding you grapes. What you got instead, a contract, not the glorious lead my army and seize the kingdom kind of contract. No, this one says, guard duty. You nod, accept the scroll, and shake the Emir's hand. It's
soft, suspiciously soft.
like a man who's never held a sword, but has definitely held a pomegranate with purpose. Your first job? Stand outside a spice warehouse and look intimidating. Easy enough. You do your best to scowl in the afternoon sun, but let's be honest. Chainmail in this heat is less menacing warrior and more human stew. The sweat pools in your boots. You seriously contemplate cutting holes in your armor just to breathe. Locals pass by and stare. One child throws a fig at your head. You consider throwing it back, but resist. Growth. After 2 days, your duties expand.
Now you also guard the Emir's personal physician, a man who smells faintly of cinnamon and arrogance. He lectures you on herbal teas, humours, and something about spleens. You nod politely while mentally reviewing your sword swing. The physician has a daughter. She's clever, always scribbling poems in the courtyard.
You catch her looking at you once, then quickly looking away. A week later, she hands you a folded note. You can't read Arabic, but the little heart drawn at the bottom is clear enough. You blush. A Viking. Blushing? What would your warband say? But you're not that man anymore, not really. The Sigurd who drank seawater and threatened geese for fun is starting to soften. You eat olives now. You actually kind of like them. You train with local guards in the mornings. They move differently, quick, loose, graceful, less smashing skulls, more dance fighting with sharp edges. You try their techniques, and while your movements are, let's say, enthusiastic, you learn. Slowly, your Norse muscles adapt, and then comes the day that changes everything. It's late afternoon. The city sizzles in the heat. You're escorting a spice shipment when 3 masked men jump out from an alley, swords drawn. They yell something you don't understand. Your fellow guard screams and bolts. You sigh, draw your sword, and in 3 fluid moves, probably more luck than skill, you knock 2 assailants flat and pin the 3rd to the wall with your knee. He whimpers something about wrong cart. Later, the Emir praises your calm efficiency, gives you a raise, promotes you to personal bodyguard, and serves you a meal so full of garlic, your paws leak it for a week. The job changes again. Now, you're part of the inner circle. You're led into rooms where people whisper about alliances. Bribes, betrayals, you listen silently. You're good at that. A silent Viking gets more respect than a loud one. You start learning Arabic badly. You once ask a baker for bread and somehow insult his grandmother's camel, but you get better. You read letters aloud, sound out poems. You even start dreaming in strange phrases. Historians still argue whether Norse warriors like you adapted out of necessity or admiration. But watching yourself now, learning, laughing, even praying with locals, you'd guess it's a bit of both. One night, at a banquet, you're seated next to a Greek merchant who smells like cheese and desperation. He tries to recruit you for a job in Crete. You decline politely. Sicily is starting to feel less foreign. And then there's the duel. It starts over nothing, a spiced pastry, the emir's favourite, left on a plate in the courtyard. You see it, you're hungry, you eat it. Unfortunately, so does the visiting Andalusian prince, or at least he planned to. He challenges you with a crooked grin. No less, you agree. You have to. It's a matter of honour, or pastry rights. At dawn, you face him in the garden. He's fast, you're strong. The fight is awkward, sweaty, and entirely too poetic. He quotes verses mid-parry. But in the end, you disarm him with a twirl you didn't know you could do. He lands in a fountain. You offer him a hand. He laughs, water dripping from his beard. Friendship formed. Afterward, the emir insists on throwing a party. There's wine, dancing, someone brings a goat, it escapes. Again, you sit under a lemon
Tree, sword leaning against your knee and think, this isn't what you planned, but it's
nice. You remember the long nights up north, wrapped in furs, staring into firelight, wondering if there was more to life than axe and ale. You found that more, and it's flavoured with mint, basil, and a surprising amount of goat cheese. You write your first letter home. You keep it simple. Alive, hot, may never return. You wake before dawn to the sound of chanting. Not Viking war cries, but the long melodic pull of the muezzin's call from the mosque near the market. The sound floats like incense through the alleyways and dances with the morning breeze that never arrives fast enough. You sit up on your straw-stuffed mattress, stretch, and hear your back crack in 3 distinct languages. Your quarters are modest, stone walls, a low archway, and a tiny window that insists on letting in more sunlight than air. You pad barefoot to the courtyard. The stone is cool under your feet. For now, by midday, it will cook a bread. Your job these days has become routine. You oversee the guard rotations, supervise spice convoys, and act as the emir's wall of flesh at public events. It's less stabby than your Viking days, but the pay's better and the figs are fresher. You visit the harbour after breakfast. Ships from everywhere, Egypt, Byzantium, the Fatimid Caliphate, even distant lands with names you can't pronounce, clutter the docks like drunken seagulls. You watch a sailor haggle over a peacock. Not a metaphor, an actual peacock. It screams in protest. You chuckle. Welcome to Sicily. On the walk back, a street performer juggles knives while standing on a barrel, and a monkey in a tiny vest collects coins. You give the monkey a fig, it gives you a wink. Either a trained move or a deeply concerning coincidence. You pass by a Roman ruin that someone's turned into a cafe. The waiter offers you pomegranate juice, which you accept. It tastes like ambition and regret, sour and sticky but oddly refreshing. Historians still argue whether Sicily at this time was a place of true tolerance or just well-managed chaos. You lean toward chaos, but it's the beautiful kind, where the chaos wears perfume and writes poetry. The emir's court is alive with drama. There's always some noble cousin plotting, some visiting diplomat lying with charm, and at least
One eunuch who seems to know more than God. You don't ask questions.
you nod, watch, and occasionally flex your sword arm when someone gets uppity. You're assigned a scribe named Tarek. He's thin, serious, and allergic to sunlight. He follows you around scribbling notes in Greek, Arabic, and once, confusingly, in Latin. You ask him why, he says, "In case Rome rises again." You respect the paranoia. Tarek tells you Sicily is the heart of the Mediterranean, the jewel of every conqueror's dreams. He draws maps for you, beautiful swirling lines that show trade routes, mountain passes, secret harbours. You keep one under your bed, for no reason, of course. Just in case, one evening, you attend a poetry contest. You, a Viking in a silk tunic that itches in places armour never did, sipping date wine and listening to men argue about metaphors. It's strange, but not unpleasant. A young poet stands up and recites something about love and jasmine and death. You don't understand half the words, but the rhythm moves you. You clap. The poet beams. Later, she tells you her name is Layla and that you have the face of a troubled tree. You're unsure if it's a compliment. The emir grows fond.
Of you, he calls you the quiet Northman, which in your homeland would be an insult.
Here, it's respect. He invites you to his personal garden, a place of fountains, rare flowers, and tortoises that walk with more purpose than most bureaucrats. You begin to spend more time with him, not just as a guard, but as a listener. He talks of dreams, uniting Sicily, bringing scholars from east and west, building an observatory. You nod, genuinely intrigued. You ask him if he trusts his court. He laughs. I trust their ambition. It makes them predictable. You start carrying a curved sword. At first, it feels wrong, like putting socks on a wolf, but it moves faster, lighter. You practice in secret, slowly weaving Arab swordplay into your Norse instinct. You get better. A new hybrid style emerges. You even name it, not dying.
In Sicily. Very technical. There's an attempted assassination, nothing personal, just politics, a poisoned fig. You dodge it by eating olives instead.
Sometimes being picky saves your life. The emir promotes you again, this time to captain of the palace guard. You accept, wondering when this turned from a detour into a destiny. You sleep in better quarters now. Real pillows, no rats, fewer spiders. You buy a horse. You name it Storm. It bites everyone but you. True love. One night, as the moon sits fat and smug over the city, you patrol the palace grounds. A musician plays something haunting on a stringed instrument. You lean
Against a pillar and listen. The stars blink like they're trying to stay awake too. You think of home.
the fjords, the cold, the way everything there felt like stone and fire and hunger. Sicily, by contrast, is soft edges and slow mornings. You realize you haven't worn your helmet in weeks. Your hair grows long, a few curls. The physician's daughter notices. There's still war, of course. Rumors of uprisings, mercenaries causing trouble inland. The emir asks you to ride out and inquire. You nod. You saddle Storm and leave before dawn. As you ride, the air cools. Olive trees blur past. You remember riding through snow once. Now it's dust and sun and fig trees. You pull your scarf higher, not for disguise, for comfort. You reach the village by midday. There's been a skirmish, 2 families feuding over irrigation rights. You mediate somewhat accidentally by sharing your lunch, bread, cheese, a little dried meat. Both sides decide they're not that angry after all. You ride back victorious and a little sunburned. That night, you write a second letter. Still, alive, definitely tanned, might be a diplomat now. You spend the next few months adjusting to your strange new rhythm. A Viking warlord turned Sicilian palace guard captain doesn't have a typical daily planner, but you make do. You wake before the city stretches, bathe with cold water poured from a jug that looks like it's judging you, then don your slightly fancier tunic, one with gold thread that you secretly hate. The mornings are slow, scroll deliveries, sword, drills, inspections. You make your rounds, nod at guards, sip sweet tea with cardamom, and try not to yawn when the Emir's astrologer explains why Mercury is angry this week. You don't know what that means, but you promise to hold your sword slightly higher, just in case. Tarek, your loyal scribe, now follows you everywhere with increasing concern. He's convinced someone is trying to poison the Emir, or you, or both. Or perhaps the tea, he adds one morning, eyeing your cup with suspicion. You consider switching to coffee, but remember the last time you did that, you didn't blink for 3 days. The palace itself is a labyrinth of marble halls and shaded courtyards, each filled with whispered secrets and someone pretending not to listen. You walk it like a wolf walks a forest, alert, half amused, half bored. Occasionally, someone tries to bribe you. You always take the pastry, never the coin. One afternoon, you're summoned to the Emir's private garden again. This time he's pacing, that's never good. You've heard of Harold, he says without looking at you. You blink, that's a name you haven't heard in years. Harold Hardrada, warrior, schemer, part legend, part headache. You nod, slowly. He's alive. In Constantinople. And he's planning something. You sigh internally. Of course he is. You try to remember if you still owe him money, or if he owes you a sword. Either way, it's a tangle you'd hoped was long behind you. Historians still debate Harold's activities during this period. Some claim he was loyal to the Byzantines. Others believe he was gathering forces for something bigger. You personally suspect he just got bored. The Emir wants information. So do you. You agree to send a letter, coded of course. You use the old trick. Mix real sentences with lines from an Icelandic lullaby. Tarek thinks you're mad. You assure him it's tradition. Meanwhile, Layla, the poet with the jasmine metaphors, has started appearing more often. Sometimes in the court garden, sometimes by the reflecting pools. You find yourself talking to her between sword drills. She tells you stories, fables, riddles, occasionally a complaint about palace sandals. You enjoy her company, though you pretend not to. She calls you Captain Northman with a smirk. You retaliate by mispronouncing her poems, on purpose. She throws olives at you. It's the closest thing to flirting you've done in years. One evening she asks, "Do you miss raiding?" You pause, then shake your head. "I miss clarity," you reply. "Back then you knew who wanted to kill you," she laughs. Here, they smile first. Later that week, an Andalusian envoy arrives. He's smooth, handsome, and definitely lying about everything. You escort him through the palace, watching his eyes more than his words. He mentions trade routes, spices, poetry exchanges. You hear sabotage, espionage, bribes. That night you follow him to a back alley meeting with a merchant who doesn't sell anything. You watch from a rooftop, hidden in the shadows like the world's least graceful cat. You slip, knock over a pot, and curse in Old Norse. The merchant bolts. The envoy stares upward, baffled. You drop down and casually walk past him. Nice night, you offer. He doesn't respond. You report to the Emir. He sighs. I liked him. Had good hair. You agree, but advise tighter security anyway. You're promoted again. Now you're officially in charge of palace intelligence, which is a fancy way of saying the person who eavesdrops better than anyone else. You take the job. You still keep your sword nearby. Trust only goes so far, even with fig suppliers. You recruit a team. 1 disgraced monk, 2 street urchins with sticky fingers, and a deaf baker who sees everything. You call them the Quiet Bunch. Tariq disapproves. You ignore him. Your network expands. You now know which chambermaid hides letters in bread, which merchant double counts his spices, and which priest occasionally borrows holy relics, just to show friends. You're becoming something else, not just a soldier, not quite a spy, something in between. You begin to wonder if this is what growing old gracefully looks like. You still train every morning, sword in hand, sweat on your brow, sparring against guards half your age who think you're slow, until they wake up on the ground. You're older, sure, but not dull. You also start writing. Tariq insists, says you should document your odd Viking retirement. You protest, but secretly enjoy it. You write in short bursts on scraps of parchment, hiding your scrolls under the bed beside your emergency figs. Layla reads one, laughs too long at your attempt to describe court politics.
As a camel race on slippery marble. You blush. Just a little. One night, you're summoned to a private dinner. Just you and the Emir. He seems tired. Older, he speaks slowly. I'm dying, he says plainly, and I don't trust my heirs. You sit still, the air thick. I want you to watch them. Guide them if you can. Stop them if you must. You nod, because what else?
Can you do? He slides a ring across the table, gold, heavy, shaped like a coiled serpent. This will open doors and close others. You accept it? You don't want it, but you accept it. That night, you can't sleep. You sit by your window watching the moon drift lazily over the sea. You wonder what Harold would do. Probably start a war. You decide to sleep instead. Your third letter home is shorter. Still not dead, now wearing rings of responsibility. Terrifying. Your days now carry a weight they didn't before. The Emir's ring sits in a velvet pouch at your hip, somehow heavier than your sword. Doors open when you flash it. Gilded. Doors, whispered doors, doors guarded by eunuchs who speak 5 languages but offer no smiles. The Emir grows paler by the week. His sons circle like hawks, each with their own cluster of advisors, warriors, flatterers. You've memorized all. Their names, strengths and weaknesses. One is clever but lazy. Another is bold but cruel. The third, well, he collects snakes. Enough said. Historians still argue whether the Emir's illness was natural or helped along by a suspiciously timed herbal infusion. You suspect the latter, but your proof is as elusive as Tariq's sense of humor. Your network of spies now operates like clockwork. The baker, Rafiq, reports on who visits the kitchen late at night, usually a sign of plotting or indigestion. The monk, who calls himself Brother Maybe, attends sermons he has no business attending and returns with scrolls he definitely wasn't supposed to borrow. You ask no questions. The palace begins to feel like a coiled spring. Every conversation hums with tension. Every glance lasts too long. One night, while crossing the moonlit courtyard, you spot someone lurking near the archive tower. You draw your dagger, approach quietly, too quietly perhaps because you nearly trip over the lurker. It's Layla. She startles, then laughs. "Looking for poems," she says. "At midnight? That's when the good ones come out." You walk her back, exchanging soft barbs. She asks if you've ever been in love. You answer with a long silence. She accepts it, which somehow makes the silence louder. That same week you receive word. A Venetian ship has docked without prior approval. You investigate. The ship's cargo is typical: silks, wine, a few illegal parrots. But the captain's guest, he's anything but typical. He's Norse, tall, scarred, with eyes like sleet and a voice that scrapes like gravel on stone. He introduces himself as Rurik. Just Rurik. You know that name. You fought beside a Rurik once in the siege of Dorostalon. He had terrible breath and an unnatural love of boiled onions. This might be him, or his son, or someone using the name as a convenient mask. You invite Rurik to your quarters for old time's sake. He accepts, drinks your wine, and lies through his teeth. Claims he's a trader. Mentions Constantinople 3 times too many. You lean in. "Say hello to Harold for me." He blinks. "I don't know a Harold." You smile. "Then you won't."
Mind if I borrow your shoes? Tarek confiscates everything he owns. Maps, letters, a curious pendant shaped like a lion biting a sword. Hidden among his things, a coded message confirming what you feared.
Harold is recruiting. He wants Sicily. You report to the Emir, who groans. "Why is it always you, Northmen, bringing drama?" "Tradition," you say. Layla reads the message and frowns. "He's ambitious. He's reckless," you reply. You start preparing contingency plans. One involves flooding the harbour, another involves bribing a fleet of Greek pirates. Both require money, lots of it. You visit the treasury. The treasurer, an elderly man who smells like ink and mild fear, complains about budget shortfalls. You suggest fewer parades. He suggests fewer spies. You remind him who carries the serpent ring. He coughs nervously and opens a vault. Inside, enough gold to buy loyalty, but not enough to stop an army. You'll need allies. You draft letters to former enemies, Byzantines, Berbers, even a few Norman knights you once insulted over a roast goose. You phrase your request carefully: "Help us stop Harold, and we won't burn your vineyards." Probably. Historians still debate the effectiveness of your diplomacy. Some say you delayed Harold's campaign by years. Others argue he simply got distracted by a different city with shinier loot. Meanwhile, the Emir's health declines sharply. He no longer walks the gardens. He no longer eats dates. You visit his chamber, find him wrapped in silken shadows. He grips your hand with surprising strength. "Don't let them destroy what I built," he whispers. You nod. "I won't." He chuckles. "That's a lie. You don't disagree." 3 days.
Later he dies.
The city mourns or pretends to. The palace becomes a theatre. The stage is draped in black, but the actors all wear smiles. The eldest son declares himself ruler. The second demands a duel. The third releases his snakes. Chaos ensues. You step into the throne room, silent, armed, uninvited. "I speak for the Emir," you say. "Buy his ring." Until peace is restored, they protest. You stare. One by one, they shut up. Historians still argue about whether you truly ruled the palace in those weeks or merely prevented others from doing so. Either way, your influence is clear. Layla brings you tea on your first day as acting protector. She offers no poem, just warmth. You don't smile. But your hand brushes hers a moment longer than necessary. That night, your sleep is broken by drums. Fleet has been sighted. You stand on the palace balcony, squinting toward the bay, where the silver light of dawn plays tricks on the water. But there's no mistaking it. Those aren't fishing boats. Masts bristle like quills, black against the amber sky. 30 ships, maybe more, with sails as wide as a cathedral door. They fly no flags, which is a flag in itself. Only pirates or invaders travel like ghosts. You summon Tarek. He arrives half-dressed, chewing on a fig. "I told you it wasn't indigestion," he mutters. You tell him to prepare the harbour defences. He grunts and stomps off. You know he'll do it. You just wish he'd wear shoes first. Layla appears beside you, fully dressed and infuriatingly calm. "Think it's your old friend Harold?" she asks. You nod. Either him or a really aggressive wine merchant. Historians still argue whether this fleet was Harold's personal force or an allied raid intended to test Sicily's defences. The truth is buried in salt water, but your gut says it's him. No one else could afford that many ships without bankrupting 3 monasteries. The city buzzes like a kicked ant hill. Soldiers clatter through the streets. Merchants shutter their stalls. Children whisper about the sea wolves with eyes of ice. You call a war council. The emir's sons bicker like seagulls over a carcass. You silence them with a single phrase. "If we die, none of you get the throne." That shuts them up nicely. You propose a layered defence. Fortify the seawall, trap the inner harbour, flood the lower quarter, if necessary. Some nobles balk at the cost. You suggest they donate their jewellery. They change the subject. As the council disperses, one voice lingers, a small-time spice merchant named Yusef. He offers ships, men, and a very specific favour, a warehouse full of Greek fire. You raise an eyebrow. It's not exactly legal, Yusef admits, but effective. You shake his hand. You're promoted. The sun rises higher, the wind shifts, and the fleet, with uncanny timing, drops anchor. That afternoon, a single longboat approaches the shore. You meet it with a dozen
archers. And there he is. Harold, taller than you remember. His beard is longer now, streaked with grey.
His armour gleams in the sun, and his smirk could shatter a mirror. "Still alive?" he calls. "Still prettier than you," you reply. He laughs and steps onto the sand. No guards, no weapons drawn. Just confidence and the weight of 30 ships. Behind him, you walk toward each other. The archers tense. "Parley?" he asks. "For old time's sake," you say. You lead him to a shaded tent. You offer wine, he declines. You offer figs, he accepts. 4 of them, actually. It's always been his weakness. "So," he says, licking syrup from his fingers, "I want the city." "No," you reply. "Well, that was easy." You lean in. "Why Sicily?" he shrugs. "Why not? Rome's too holy. Spain's too stabby. Africa's too sandy. But Sicily, she's warm, rich, tired. You sip your wine. She has teeth. I'll pull them gently. Historians still debate whether this parley was sincere or simply a delay tactic. Some say you nearly struck a bargain. Others believe you just wanted time to finish building underwater spike traps. You propose a trade. He leaves, and you give him 5 ships worth of silver.
He laughs so hard he nearly chokes on his 5th fig. "No," he says, "but I'll let you live if you open the gates." Generous. I've mellowed. You both know it's a lie. The parley ends. No deal. That night, you stand on the battlements.
Below, torches shimmer like fireflies across the enemy camp. drums echo like a slow heartbeat. Layla joins you. She brings no tea this time, just her presence. "I'm not leaving," she says. You nod. "Didn't ask you to." She leans on the stone. "Do we have a chance?" You think of all the defenses, the traps, the volunteers. You think of the Greek fire. You think of the Emir, dead and silent. "Maybe," she exhales. "You're a terrible..."
Liar, I try. Down below, a trumpet blares. The attack begins. Archers light their arrows. Catapults groan. The sea becomes a cauldron of flame and smoke. And you run into the fray, sword drawn, yelling the name of a city that was never yours, but somehow became your home. Smoke wraps the city like a shawl, stitched in panic and gunpowder.
You duck beneath a burning beam, heart drumming louder than the war horns outside. You taste soot, you taste fear, and beneath it all, annoyingly, you taste those figs you shared with Harold. The man may be invading your city, but he still has good taste in fruit. The battle for Palermo has begun in earnest. Flaming arrows arc overhead like drunken fireflies, some striking the walls, some hitting nothing, and one embedding perfectly into a fish barrel, scaring exactly no one but the fish. Harold's forces are clever. They don't charge head-on. Like typical raiders, instead they feint toward the south gate, while hidden teams scale the northern wall under cover of smoke. You predicted that. You'd spent 2 days filling that section of the wall with fake platforms and collapsing ledges. Let's just say the invaders now believe in gravity a lot more than they did this morning. Meanwhile, Tarek commands the harbor. Defenses. You hear his battle cry echoing across the water, equal parts lion and angry goat. He's lobbed flaming barrels of oil from your illegally acquired stockpile of Greek fire. The sea erupts in brief, horrifying beauty, an orange blossom blooming in chaos. Some ships catch fire, others retreat in panic. The bay, once serene, becomes a fiery death trap, and yet they keep coming. Historians still argue whether this was the largest naval attack on Palermo prior to the Norman conquest. Some claim Harold wanted to conquer it outright. Others believe it was a personal vendetta, perhaps to prove something to himself or to you. You fight alongside soldiers and citizens alike. An old butcher with trembling hands swings a cleaver like a man possessed. A young girl, maybe 12, darts between fallen fighters, dragging the wounded to safety. You yell her name, but she's already gone again, fast as a whisper. Your sword arm grows numb. Your voice cracks from shouting orders, but you keep moving. You dodge, you slash, you slip on what you really hope is fish guts. Then you see him, Harold, again, on the wall, somehow already past 2 lines of defense. He's a force of nature, swinging that monstrous axe of his with the elegance of a man combing his hair. You curse, loudly. Layla appears beside you, panting, holding a crossbow. "You owe..."
Me tea after this, she says. Sure, you gasp, if we're still alive. She smirks. I'll put the kettle on. Together, you charge the wall.
You clash with Harold under a scorched Sicilian sky. Metal hits metal. Sparks dance in the air like mischievous spirits. You dodge his overhead swing by a hair and retaliate with a quick jab. He grunts, amused. "You've improved," he growls. "You've gotten slow, you lie." It's a messy, violent reunion. And yet beneath the chaos, there's something oddly familiar. 2 men who once hunted wild boar together, now trying to break each other's ribs. You manage to land a solid strike against
his leg.
He stumbles. Layla fires her crossbow, hits his shoulder. He growls, angry now, really angry. But before he can strike back, a horn blows, one of his horns. Retreat. The Vikings pull back. Boats scramble. Fires smolder. Arrows hiss into the sea. The key battle pauses, not ends, just pauses. You collapse onto a crate, trying not to vomit from exertion. Your city still stands, but barely. You've lost good people. You've burned through your best tricks, and Harold, he's not finished. As twilight stretches long, you wander the damaged walls, counting casualties. Some buildings are gone. One tower leans like a drunk uncle, but the heart of Palermo still beats. Inside the palace, Tarek drinks straight from the wine jug. You don't stop him. He earned it. You meet with Yusef again. I have an idea, he says, grinning too wide. You narrow your eyes. How illegal. Very. You listen anyway. Meanwhile, outside the city, Harold isn't sulking. He's planning.
Adjusting. His second in command, some say a former monk turned berserker, is gathering mercenaries from inland, and there's a rumor, a ship spotted south of Messina,
bearing the mark of the Byzantine Empire. Historians still debate if this was coincidence or collusion. Some believe Harold reached out to Constantinople for backup. Others think the Byzantines simply enjoyed watching two foreign powers wear each other down. You sleep barely. Your dreams are nonsense. Screaming figs. Crossbow-wielding goats. A cat wearing your crown. Morning comes with another horn blast. They're back, and this time they're smarter. The second assault doesn't begin with thunder. It begins with silence. And you hate that even more. Dawn breaks over Palermo like a sleepy eye squinting through ash. You're on the parapet again, this time without breakfast, because apparently someone looted the bakery in the chaos. A tragedy, frankly. You scan the horizon. No ships, no war cries, no clanking of armor, just wind. You don't trust it. Neither does Layla, who shows up chewing what might be a leftover fig and muttering about the superstition of 2 quiet mornings. Tarek arrives late, swearing in 3 languages and dragging a soggy map. They're doing the thing, he says. What thing? He stabs the parchment. The we sneak in from the hills while you look at the sea thing. You blink, then you sprint. They've flanked you. It's not the full army, just a crack team of Norse berserkers and their suspiciously well-shaven accomplices. They come through the eastern vineyards, which would be scenic if not for the yelling and the flailing swords. You gather your best remaining fighters. There's Marco, the goat farmer, still wearing his apron. There's Xena, the scroll keeper, holding a spear like it's a broom. And there's you, no longer a mystery guest from the north, but Palermo's favorite unexpected warlord. The fighting's fierce. You lose ground, then gain some back with the help of some strategically placed barrels of spoiled olives. Turns out, fermented fruit makes for a surprisingly slippery death trap. One berserker charges you like a wild boar. You dodge, trip on a grapevine, and accidentally spear him through the thigh. Not elegant, but effective. You notice something strange. A few of these attackers are not Norse. Darker skin, different armor. Some speak Greek. You frown. Is Harold outsourcing? Historians still argue whether this marked the first use of a multi-ethnic mercenary group in Viking operations in Sicily. Some say it was necessity. Others suspect political experimentation. Either way, it complicates things. Harold himself is nowhere in sight. A decoy maneuver? Or is he testing your defenses? You hate how well he knows your style. After 3 hours, you repel the vineyard attack, but it costs you. The eastern wall is damaged. Your supply cache is discovered and looted. So much for that backup wine. Worse, morale dips. You call a meeting in the city's central bathhouse. It smells like stress and lavender, which is weirdly soothing. The steam fogs up your war map, making everything look vaguely like spaghetti. Layla suggests booby trapping, the sewer routes. Tarek volunteers to crawl through them. I've been in worse, he shrugs, which raises more questions than answers. Youssef arrives late, holding a package. Open it, he says. Inside is a scroll, a list of names. Greek.
Names? He's intercepted a message from the Byzantines, something about Operation Wreath. You look closer.
Several of the mercenaries' names match those from earlier skirmishes, so that's the game. The Byzantines are backing Harold, maybe not officially, but enough to give him edge. Now, Palermo is not just fending off Vikings, but also weathering. Byzantine meddling. It's like trying to play chess while someone keeps nudging the board. You write a message that night, not to an ally, but an enemy of your enemy, a local Norman lord who recently lost 2 sons to Harold's raids. Risky? Definitely, but desperate times. The messenger departs at midnight on a fast horse. You stare after him, wondering if it's the smartest thing you've done, or the beginning of your downfall. You return to the ramparts just in time for a new kind of battle. This one's psychological. Harold's men don't attack, they sing. From outside the walls rises a low, eerie chant in Norse. You don't know the words, but the tone is clear. Mocking, confident, familiar.
A war song from your childhood. It's the tune your uncle used to sing before he set fire to the fishing village next door. Nostalgic, really. You clench your fists. They're taunting us, Layla mutters. More like serenading our patience.
To death. Tarek looks tired. We're running out of tricks. Good, you say. That means they won't expect what comes next. What's that? You grin. Something very illegal. The moon rises. Palermo waits, and somewhere in the distance, a new ship approaches. No flag, no allegiance, just sails like dragon wings against the stars. You don't sleep that night, not because of the war chants, those fade around midnight, but because of that unmarked ship. It anchors in the outer bay with no ceremony, no lights, and no rowboats. Just sits there like it's watching you. By dawn, the fog thickens. You half expect ghosts to start popping out. Palermo looks like it's wrapped in cotton, and the city's nerves are fraying. You sip lukewarm tea made from stolen fig leaves. Not bad if you pretend it's coffee. Layla finds you first. They're not Norse, she says. You nod. I know. No flags, no contact, no patterns, which makes them the most dangerous players on the board. Palermo's docks are too shallow for that ship to approach fully, so it sends in a small boat instead. One man rows it, slow, deliberate strokes. He's tall, robed, doesn't seem armed. You meet him at the shore because if this is some kind
of Ghost Viking death envoy, you want to see it up close. He doesn't speak. He just hands you a scroll. You break the seal. It's from the Emir of Ifriqiya.
Tunisia to your modern ears, you blink. It's a letter of observational curiosity. Apparently, your defense of Palermo has made the rounds. The Norseman who fights like a Sicilian, the Sicilian who thinks like a Norseman. That's you. They want to send volunteer observers to learn from your unorthodox tactics. And by volunteer, you suspect they mean mercenary scouts with plausible deniability. Historians still argue whether this letter marked the beginning of Islamic Norman cooperative warfare in southern Europe, or just a very elaborate way to spy on both sides. Either way, you nod. Tell him yes. The robed man vanishes back in two. The mist. You never even saw his eyes. Now you have a new variable. These observers arrive in small batches, no more than 5 at a time. They wear curved daggers and speak 3 languages, one of which is poetry. Layla is suspicious. Tarek is
enchanted.
You are cautiously optimistic. They help you reinforce the east wall, quietly, precisely. They introduce fire bombs made of something that smells like boiled tar and fish guts. It works disturbingly well, Harold notices. The next attack is sudden and sharp. He uses battering rams made of cedar, stylish, if impractical, too fragrant. You burn them with the new fire bombs, and for the first time you see hesitation in the enemy's eyes. They weren't expecting Palermo to fight back like a hybrid war chimera. You spend the next days strengthening what's left of the cities.
Infrastructure. Half your archers are now trained with scimitars. The other half learn to lie convincingly about how many men you have left. That night, around the communal fire pit, Tarek tries to play a lute. Badly. Why did you come here again?
Layla asks him. He shrugs. I was bored, and that's not the whole truth, but nobody pushes it. You realize something strange as the stars blink above. You care about this city now, not just because it's your refuge or your battlefield, but because somewhere between boiling sewers and dodging arrows, it became your responsibility. You're not just surviving anymore, you're defending. Still, not everyone shares your optimism. The city council is on edge. Supplies are low, tensions rise, rumors swirl that Harold's next wave will be final and personal. He's lost patience. He's bringing the hammer down. One of your scouts, a wiry kid named Rami, brings news at dawn. They're digging. North Hill. Looks like a tunnel. You spit out your tea. Of course they are. You gather your map, your robed new friends, and your sarcasm. It's go time. The tunnel project isn't new. The Byzantines used it, the Moors before them. Harold's version is brutal but basic. Dig under the walls, collapse them from beneath. You crawl through dirt like a worm with a death wish. The tunnel reeks of damp and fury, but eventually you find the breach. It's narrow and it's active. You plant jars of fermented goat fat, don't ask how you acquired it, then light a fuse. The explosion is modest but satisfying. Earth belches, tunnel collapses, you escape coughing and victorious. Back on the surface, you spot Harold watching from a ridge. He's still wearing that fur-trimmed armor, still posing like he's a romantic novel cover. You wave, he does not wave back, but you swear. He smirks. You return to the city in time to see Yusuf testing a new idea involving mirrors and sunlight. You planning to blind them? Only temporarily. Brilliant. You're promoted. To what exactly? Who knows, but the look on his face is priceless. The truth is, you don't know how long Palermo can hold, but you do know one thing. Harold expected you to flee. He didn't expect you to adapt. And the longer you survive, the more unpredictable you become. You fall asleep to the sound of hammering, reinforcements being nailed in, makeshift traps being set, hopes being cobbled together like the world's most desperate IKEA project. And just before your eyes close, you think, if I live through this, I might just write a book. You wake to laughter. Not the manic kind that usually follows starvation or poor battle plans. Real laughter. From kids. Somewhere, someone's juggling oranges in the square again. A weird normalcy creeps into the air, like Palermo is slowly deciding it can pretend not to be under siege. You stretch, bones popping like old door hinges. Your back aches from sleeping on stone. But your heart? It's oddly light. That's when the pigeon arrives. Not metaphorically, an actual pigeon. Flies, straight into your face while you're brushing your teeth with a mint twig Layla swears by. Tied to its leg is a message. The handwriting is dramatic, flourished, swirly, like someone wrote it while wearing velvet gloves. Dearest brother,
Cease your stubborn nonsense and surrender the city. I grow weary of your theatrics. It's signed, of course, Harold the Relentless. You blink, brother.
you gather your closest council, Layla, Yusuf, Tarek, and one of the newer recruits from Ifriqiya, who still thinks swords are just for pointing. You show them the letter. Layla squints. He's either mocking you or he's actually related to you. You shrug. Could go either way. Historians still argue whether Harold and you were blood-related, battle-bonded, or just, really, into psychological warfare. Some say the term brother was a Norse thing, a way of invoking kinship in the face of shared gods or shared guts spilled in snow, but this feels more personal. You don't respond, yet instead you double the patrols, triple the firebomb stockpile, and have a pigeon of your own deliver back something far simpler, a chicken bone. Harold receives it, no note. Just the bone, snapped, clean ends. 2. You hear his howl from 3 streets away. The next assault isn't quiet. It's not even strategic. It's a tantrum disguised as warfare. He throws every spare axe, every half-trained raider, and at least one poor horse into the fray. You counter with smoke bombs made from dried seaweed and the collective anger of 1,000 Sicilian grandmothers. The battle's chaos. Fire meets fog. Yelling meets poetry. One of your Ifriqiyan allies, a poet named Farid, starts reciting verses mid-fight just to throw the enemy off. Roses bloom red, so do your wounds. He's tackled mid-sonnet, but it works. Somehow, against math and reason, you hold. When the dust settles, Palermo is cracked and coughing, but still standing, and your legend. It's starting to ferment into something more potent than fear. It's becoming inspiration. New volunteers trickle in, not just from the surrounding countryside, but from as far as Messina and even Naples. They bring rumors. The Viking who turned Sicilian, they whisper. The madman who boiled enemy swords into soup. You do not correct them. In fact, you lean into it. You start leaving misleading messages in carved stones near enemy campfires. Today's attack is cancelled due to dragon training. Beware the talking goat. The east wall bites. Each one makes Harold twitchier. Paranoia sets in. He begins rotating his captains daily. That's good. He's losing cohesion, but Palermo's still starving. You run low on flour, oil, and morale, so you host a feast. Yes, a feast. On the rooftop of the governor's old villa, you cobble together whatever's left. Roasted olives, stale flatbread, boiled fish skins. Layla brings fermented date juice. It tastes like angry cider. But the point isn't the food, it's the sound of music again. Tarek plays a 4-string lute, badly, again. Farid recites new poetry. Yusuf tells a joke about 2 crusaders and a leaky boat that makes exactly 1 person. Snort. And you? You tell stories about winters in the fjords, about your first raid you threw up, about how you once mistook a bishop's ceremonial hat for a chamber pot. Everyone groans, but they laugh. And in that laughter, Palermo finds something stronger than stone. Defiance. That night, Harold tries a sneak attack, rope ladders and moonlight. But he finds the ladders greased with fish oil and the defenders already, dancing with swords. You catch one of his captains alive, a blonde, scarred veteran named Ulrich. You offer him food. He blinks. Why? You smile. Because I want you to tell Harold something. What? That I'm still not impressed. He's released the next morning, confused, full, and visibly shaken. The observers from Ifriqiya take notes. The firebombs evolve now with a sticky compound that clings to wood and, disturbingly, skin. You vow never to ask what's in it. Layla just smirks and says, "It's organic. Despite all this, the siege is grinding you down. One morning, you wake to find 3 guards asleep at their posts, not dead, just
Exhausted, you don't punish them. You sit beside them instead. And then you do the unthinkable. You rest just for an hour. But it's enough to remember who you are. You dream of snow and silence, of sled tracks and pine smoke, of a place that never
really felt like home, and yet still pulls at you. You wake up and whisper, "Not yet," because Palermo still needs you, and you're not done making history. You wake to silence. Not the comforting kind that comes before a dawn songbird chirps, but the eerie, clawing quiet of something missing. No drums, no shouts, no Viking horns, echoing across the hills, no siege ladders scraping at the gates. You climb the old watchtower, your joints protesting like they want to retire before you do. You peer out toward the enemy camp, expecting the usual bonfires and tents. Gone, all of it. Just a trampled field and a broken cartwheel spinning in the breeze. Harold the Relentless has vanished. You blink, once, twice. You even smack your own cheek, which stings more than you expect. "Layla," you yell, startling a cat that wasn't yours. "He's gone!" Layla, of course, doesn't believe you until she sees it herself. Then she blinks slowly, looks at the sky, and mutters, "Either a miracle or he died of embarrassment." Historians still argue whether Harold withdrew due to a political recall, a bribe, or simple mental fatigue from all your psychological warfare. Some claim he was summoned back to Constantinople to chase glory in bureaucratic halls. Others insist his men turned on him after one too many failed charges and fish oil-coated ladders. You don't care. He's gone. You did it. You defended a Sicilian city from a Viking siege using nothing but bad jokes, worse food, and the kind of military creativity that gives commanders migraines. Palermo erupts into celebration. Bread returns. Music overflows. Someone paints a mural of you wrestling a bear while balancing wine jugs. You do not correct the depiction, but your victory is bittersweet. Because now you're left with a city. A tired, battered, multicultural puzzle of a city that's quietly asking you, what now? You wander the streets no longer in armor. People greet you by name. A few even try to hand you babies. You decline politely but firmly. You take in the rebuilding efforts. Shops reopening. Young men hammering planks into broken doors. Children playing pretend soldiers in alleyways. And you realize you're not leaving. You thought this was a pause. A strange pit stop in your roaring saga of blood and ocean wind. But Palermo has you now, anchored, rooted. You visit the docks where your longship used to sit. It's half rotted now, filled with sand and stray cats.
One of them hisses at you like it remembers you never shared fish. You sit beside the hull, brush your hand along the warped planks. "Retired," you whisper. Just like that, Layla finds you an hour later, carrying a bottle of that angry cider.
She sits beside you, not saying anything for a while. Then she asks, "Do you miss it?" You look at the sea, the way it glimmers like armor in the morning sun. The way it always seems to call you back. Sometimes you admit. But then you remember the siege, the smell of fear, the cracked walls, the 1,000 things that could have gone wrong but didn't. because somehow you were just mad enough to make them work. And now it's quiet. Layla nudges your shoulder. You know, we're rebuilding the library. You raise an eyebrow. I thought it burned. It did. That's why we're rebuilding it. She stands, brushing dust from her robe. You should write something for it. You snort. Like what? Your story. Or part of it. Start with, "The siege, end wherever you want." You laugh, loud and long. No one wants to read that. But later that night, you sit with a reed pen and ink that smells like olives, and you begin. You arrive in Palermo expecting heat, fish, and obscurity. You keep writing. Days pass. The city keeps recovering, and you begin shaping its future in small ways, settling disputes, organizing granary restocks, even helping build a bathhouse that doesn't collapse the moment someone steps inside. You're not a governor, not officially, but people start calling you that anyway, sometimes in jest, sometimes with affection, always with the tone of someone who knows you're not going anywhere. A few ships arrive from the north, traders mostly, and a handful of curious younger warriors looking for the Viking who lives in sunshine now. They ask for stories. You tell them one or two, never the full tale, not yet. Farid the poet puts some of your exploits into verse, dramatic ones, over-the-top ones. You tell him to tone it down, he adds a dragon. One day, a small boy with missing front teeth and a fierce scowl asks you, "Were you really a Viking?" You crouch beside him. "What's a Viking?" He frowns. "My dad says you burned villages and stole goats." You grin. "Sometimes, but mostly I just got lost." He thinks about this. "Are you still a Viking?" You look at your hands.
Scarred, calloused, still strong. You look at the city, mending around you, and then you look at the boy. "No," you say. "I'm something different now." He nods. Then runs off to hit another kid with a wooden sword. Layla walks up behind.
You'll make a good mayor." "Gods forbid. You already are." You don't argue. That night you dream of snow again, but this time it's not calling you back. It's just waving from the past like an old friend who knows your journey took you somewhere unexpected. You wave back and sleep peacefully for once. You wake up feeling the first true peace in ages. The morning air drapes over Palermo like a soft linen cloak, and the scent of orange blossoms drifts in from nearby gardens, mingling with the salty kiss of the sea. The city feels different, lighter, as if a great weight has been lifted. You stroll through the streets watching market. Vendors arrange their goods. Piles of figs gleam under the sunlight, and the chatter is less frantic, more hopeful. The scars of siege remain, walls still pockmarked, roofs hastily patched, but the life inside the city hums louder than any battle cry. The children play near the fountain, their laughter echoing off the stone like music. And you think you hear. The city itself exhale, the long siege is over. You think back to your first days here, a Viking exile chasing an odd dream under the Sicilian sun. Now you find yourself less a conqueror and more a custodian, a steward of a city reborn from ashes and ambition. There's talk of new trade routes opening, the Normans eyeing the island with their usual interest, and whispers of Byzantine intrigue on the horizon. Yet here, in Palermo, you've carved a small slice of peace. Historians still argue whether your retirement was an act of defeat or transformation. Some say you simply outlived your lust for battle. Others believe you embraced the Mediterranean way of life, trading swords for olives and songs. But you know the truth. You never truly left the Viking spirit behind. You just changed its shape. The salty breeze carries a familiar sound, lute strings from a nearby tavern, where Farid and Tarek have gathered, their voices weaving stories old and new. You pause, closing your eyes to take it all in. The city's heartbeat, the gentle hum of everyday life, the promise of something quietly enduring. And as you walk on, the warmth of the Sicilian sun on your back, you realize this story, your story, is only just beginning. You wake up to the rhythmic pounding of waves against the shore, not the battle drums you used to know, but something gentler, almost hypnotic. Palermo is now your home, but the sea calls to you still, reminding you of distant fjords and smoky halls where your saga began. Today, you decide to visit the harbour where your longship once rested, now replaced by sleek merchant vessels gliding under the Sicilian sun. Walking along the docks, you notice fishermen unloading nets heavy with sardines and anchovies, their
laughter carrying across the salt-tinged air. A young boy, no older than 10, tugs at your sleeve and asks, "Did you sail the seas for treasure and glory?"
You smile, ruffling his hair, recalling your own youthful ambitions. How glory often tasted like cold rain and blisters. The truth is, your Viking days weren't just about raiding and pillaging. They were about survival, navigating treacherous waters, both literal and political. You remember the intricate alliances forged and broken, the cryptic runes etched into weapons, and the endless debates among historians about whether Vikings were marauders or merchants in disguise. Some argue the stereotype of brutal pillagers oversimplifies a complex culture that thrived on trade and exploration. In Palermo, those two worlds meet. Greek temples rub shoulders with Norman cathedrals, while Arabic minarets stretch toward the sky. This melting pot mirrors your own journey. A Viking forged anew by Sicilian sun and sea. Later, as the sun dips low, you sit by the fire with Layla and Farid. Farid recites a poem mixing Norse sagas with Sicilian folk tales, his voice weaving a tapestry of cultures. You chuckle at the bizarre imagery, a Viking wrestling a tritone sea monster over a jug of wine. Historians still argue whether these cross-cultural tales are history or myth, but for you, they're the soul of your new home. Night settles softly. The fan hums gently in the background. You feel the pull of the ocean's lullaby, not as a call to battle, but as a whisper inviting you to dream of past adventures and new beginnings. You rise with the dawn's first light and wander toward the city's oldest market, where the scent of fresh bread and roasting coffee mingles in the cool morning air. The familiar chaos is muted today, replaced by a gentle buzz of merchants exchanging greetings and customers carefully choosing ripe figs and fragrant spices. Your footsteps echo softly on the cobblestones, worn smooth by centuries of travelers and traders. You pass a stall where an old man carves intricate wooden figurines, his hands steady despite the years. You pause, intrigued, and he catches your gaze with a knowing smile. "You're not from here," he says in broken Old Norse, sprinkled with Sicilian accents. "No," you reply, "but I'm trying to learn." He nods slowly, his eyes reflecting stories you can only imagine. Palermo is a city of many tongues, many stories. You'll find your place here, but it takes time. You remember your early days here, confused by customs, the mosaic of cultures clashing and blending. Historians still debate whether Palermo's unique blend of Norman, Byzantine, and Arab influences was a fragile truce or a deliberate harmony. To you it feels like a living, breathing tapestry stitched with threads of history, conflict, and cooperation. Later you sit with Layla near a fountain, listening to her recount tales of Sicily's past rulers, Romans, Vandals, Byzantines, and their marks on the land. She points to a cracked mosaic on the fountain's edge, faded but defiant. "Even broken, it tells a story," she says. "Like us." You smile, feeling the weight of that truth. Victory over Harold was only the beginning. Now the challenge is peace, sometimes a quieter, harder battle. The sun climbs higher, and a gentle breeze stirs the orange blossoms overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a lute plays a familiar tune, carrying you back to your Viking days and forward into this strange new life. You realize that in this city where stories converge, your own story is weaving into something richer than any saga you've ever known. You find yourself drawn to the city's grand cathedral, its soaring arches, and intricate stone carvings a testament to centuries of faith and conflict. The scent of incense curls through the cool air, mingling with the faint echo of Gregorian chants drifting from hidden corners. You step inside, letting the calm wash over you like a balm after the chaos of battles and sieges. You notice the carved, wooden pews worn smooth by countless prayers and whispered hopes. A fresco above the altar depicts saints and warriors intertwined, their faces serene yet resolute, a reflection of Palermo itself, caught between strife and serenity. As you sit quietly, an old monk approaches, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. He speaks softly of Palermo's turbulent past, of Viking raids mingling with Byzantine politics, and how faith shaped the city's soul. He mentions a curious debate among scholars, whether the Vikings' interactions with the Mediterranean world led to true cultural exchange or mere opportunistic raids. You reflect on your own journey, from raider to reluctant guardian of this city's fragile peace. You realize the monastery's walls hold stories as complex and layered as your own. Exiting the cathedral, the afternoon sun casts long shadows over the piazza, where children chase pigeons and merchants hawk their wares. The city breathes alive, with the rhythm of everyday life that you helped preserve. Walking back through narrow alleys, you pass a blacksmith hammering glowing metal. The clang resonates like a heartbeat, reminding you of your warrior days. Yet here, the forge serves creation more than destruction. You pause, listening to the city's symphony. Laughter, bells, the distant murmur of the sea. The Viking in you smiles quietly, understanding that some battles are fought not with sword and shield, but with patience and care. You wake to the faint call of a muezzin echoing through Palermo's morning air, a gentle reminder of the city's rich Islamic heritage, blending seamlessly with Norman and Byzantine echoes. The scent of freshly baked sfinzione, a thick, focaccia-like bread, topped with tomatoes and onions, wafts from a nearby bakery, tempting your senses. You step outside, letting the warmth of the Mediterranean sun wrap around you like a well-worn cloak. Today you wander toward the ancient gardens of the Zisa Palace, once a royal Norman residence infused with Arab architectural grace. The intricate geometric patterns on the tiles, the delicate arches, and the serene fountains speak of a time when cultures collided and coexisted in a delicate dance. It's strange to think a Viking like you now finds solace amid these symbols of peace and artistry. Historians still argue whether this blend of Arab and Norman design was a genuine cultural fusion or simply a demonstration of Norman power cloaked in exotic aesthetics. Either way, you feel its calming effect, a testament to resilience through diversity. As you stroll through the garden, a group of children chase each other, their laughter mingling with the gentle splash of water. You watch a young boy try to
mimic the way you once wielded a sword, more clumsy than fierce, but his enthusiasm reminds you of your own youthful mistakes. In the quiet corners of the garden, you meet Layla, who tells you stories about the palace's past, of sultans and
kings of poets and artisans who once graced these grounds. She shares a peculiar fact. Locals still believe the Zeus's fountains have healing powers, a superstition rooted in ancient legends. You smile, imagining your rough Viking hands tracing the smooth stones, feeling the pulse of history beneath your fingertips. This city, this strange patchwork of old worlds, has become your sanctuary. As the sun climbs higher, you realize that peace isn't just the absence of war. It's the presence of moments like these, fragile and beautiful. You begin your day with the sound of merchants setting up their stalls in the bustling Capo market, a kaleidoscope of colors and scents swirling through the air. You weave through crowds of locals bartering for fresh seafood, fragrant spices and vibrant textiles. The vibrant life of the market is a stark contrast to the cold steel and harsh winds of your northern homeland. You pause to watch a storyteller enthrall a small group with tales of the sea, weaving legends of sirens and sea serpents alongside. The mundane struggles of fishermen, the crowd is captivated, laughter and gasps punctuating his every word. It strikes you how stories, whether myth or fact, bind communities, just as sagas did in your youth. You recall a quirky detail from your early days here. Some Sicilian fishermen claimed their nets were protected by the blessings of saints and sea spirits alike, blending Christian faith with older, mysterious beliefs. Historians still argue whether such syncretism was a survival tactic or a genuine spiritual fusion. Continuing your stroll, you stop at a small tavern where Layla and Fari debate the future of Sicily over mugs of dark wine. They speak of rumors that the Normans might soon impose new taxes, threatening the fragile peace and prosperity you've helped nurture. You listen, weighing the prospects of another upheaval with the weary patience only a Viking can muster. Dusk falls, you walk along the harbour once more, the cool sea breeze teasing your hair. Ships bob gently in the twilight, their sails whispering promises of far-off lands and adventures yet to come. You realize that even in retirement, the call of the sea never truly fades. It simply changes its tune. And so, as the night deepens, you settle by the fire, ready to dream of voyages past and days yet to unfold. You wake to a soft drizzle pattering on the terracotta roofs, a gentle Sicilian rain replacing the harsh northern storms you once knew. The scent of wet earth mingles with the faint aroma of roasting coffee, drawing you toward the small cafe tucked into a quiet alley. Inside, the air is warm and thick with conversation in a dozen tongues, Italian, Arabic, Old Norse whispers carried through your memories. You settle into a corner seat, watching as a storyteller captivates a group with a peculiar legend. How Vikings once sailed the Mediterranean disguised as merchants, blending in so well that locals barely noticed them. It's a tale that makes you smirk, reminding you of the thin line you walked between warrior and trader. Scholars still debate whether these stories are romantic exaggerations or based on subtle truths lost to time. Outside, the rain softens, and you decide to explore the narrow streets where graffiti melds ancient runes with Arabic calligraphy. a strange but fitting symbol of Palermo's layered history. You pass a small workshop where artisans craft traditional Sicilian puppets, their vibrant colors and exaggerated features hinting at a culture that loves both drama and humor. You recall how your own Viking clan embraced storytelling not just for history, but for entertainment, a way to make sense of chaos and loss. Here in Palermo, that spirit lives on in unexpected forms. By midday, the clouds part, and sunlight spills over the city, turning wet stones into gleaming mirrors. You pause at a fountain where children splash and laugh, their joy a reminder that life, no matter the century or the continent, finds ways to bloom amid uncertainty. As you wander back home, you feel a quiet contentment, knowing that though you once sought glory in raids, you now find it in small moments, like rain on warm stone and stories shared over coffee. You spend the morning wandering toward the old Roman theatre, its grand stone arches weathered but standing proud against the Sicilian sky. The space is quiet now, the echoes of ancient performances long faded, yet you can almost hear the ghosts of applause and laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. You sit on the cold steps, feeling the weight of history pressing gently against your skin. Nearby, a group of scholars discuss recent discoveries beneath the ruins, fragments of pottery and inscriptions hinting at unknown layers of Sicilian life. Historians still argue whether the Romans' influence was a foundation for cultural harmony or a prelude to centuries of conflict and conquest. For you, it's a reminder that every stone here carries stories both peaceful and turbulent. As you explore the site, a local artist sketches the crumbling columns, capturing the interplay of light and shadow with deft strokes. You watch, fascinated by how art keeps memory alive, much like the sagas your people once told around roaring fires. You think about how, despite the distance from your Nordic homeland, storytelling remains a universal thread. In the afternoon, you meet Layla at a nearby cafe, and over sweet granita, she tells you about the Sicilian tradition of oral poetry, ballads that recount love, loss, and heroism passed down through generations. You smile, realizing how similar these are to your own people's skaldic verses. As the sun sets, casting a golden glow over the ruins, you feel a profound connection to this place, a Viking who has become part of Sicily's ongoing tale, woven into its ancient stones and whispered legends. You awaken to the soft cooing of pigeons outside your window, the gentle rustle of palm fronds stirring in the morning breeze. The warm light filters through faded curtains, casting playful patterns on the terracotta floor. Today, you decide to visit the bustling port once again, a place where the pulse of trade and travel beats strongest. As you stroll along the docks, you watch sailors unloading exotic goods, silks from the east, spices from distant lands, and sturdy timber bound for northern shores. The air hums with a mix of languages, accents folding over one another like waves in the harbor. You remember how the Vikings once navigated these waters with long ships, their sails catching the same Mediterranean winds now filling merchant vessels. You stop by a fisherman mending his nets, his sun-browned hands steady despite age. He shares a curious tale. Some locals believe that the sea's tides are influenced by the spirits of past sailors, guiding or warning those who dare to challenge the waves. Historians still debate whether such maritime superstitions shaped actual seafaring practices or were simply comforting myths for those facing the unknown. Further down the quay, you notice a group of children playing a game reminiscent of Viking board games, their laughter echoing over the water. It strikes you how echoes of your culture have blended seamlessly with Sicilian life, surviving centuries of change. As the afternoon sun warms your back, you feel the calm certainty that, like the harbour, your life has found a safe mooring here. A Viking settled not by conquest but by choice. You stroll through the vibrant streets toward the markets again, this time drawn by the lively sounds of music and chatter from a nearby piazza. Musicians play traditional Sicilian instruments, oi, tambourine's steady rhythm, a zampogna's haunting melody, inviting you into the communal dance of the city. You feel the rhythm in your bones, a far cry from the battle drums of your youth, but just as powerful in its way. Among the crowd, you spot a storyteller weaving tales of the Normans' arrival, their conquests, and the unexpected peace they forged. Through alliances and marriages, you listen closely, intrigued by the nuanced portrayal of these figures once seen only as invaders. Historians still argue whether Norman rule truly unified Sicily or simply layered new conflicts atop old ones. You recall your own complex role in these transformations, once a raider, now an uneasy peacekeeper, caught between old loyalties and
new realities. Nearby, an elderly woman sells sweet cannoli filled with ricotta, her smile warm and knowing. She shares a quirky fact. Some say the cannoli was invented in Palermo's convents, a delicious accident born from resourcefulness and
a sweet tooth. As twilight deepens, lanterns flicker to life, casting golden pools of light on the cobblestones. The city hums with life and history, a tapestry of stories where even a Viking who retired here can find a place. You smile, realizing that sometimes the loudest battles are fought with dance, food, and stories shared under the stars. You wake to the scent of freshly ground coffee mingling with the salty breeze from the sea. Today, you decide to explore the ancient catacombs beneath Palermo, winding your way through narrow, dimly lit passages carved into soft rock. The cool air is thick with history and mystery, the walls whispering secrets of forgotten saints and hidden communities. You remember how early Christians used these subterranean sanctuaries for worship and refuge, a stark contrast to the open battlefields of your Viking past. Historians still argue whether these catacombs were purely religious havens or also places of political intrigue and social gathering. A guide shares a quirky detail. Some skeletons here are posed in strange positions, as if still engaged in life's final gestures. One with a tiny cross clutched tightly, another seemingly frozen mid-laugh. It's eerie yet oddly comforting, a reminder that beneath all our differences mortality unites us. As you trace the cool stone walls, you reflect on your own journey from a fierce Viking warrior to a quiet resident absorbing the layered cultures of Sicily. The catacombs feel like a metaphor for your new life, deep, complex, and intertwined with countless stories. Emerging into the daylight, the sun warms your face, and you take a deep breath, grateful for this unexpected peace amid the shadows. You spend the morning wandering the colourful markets, now familiar faces greeting you with nods and smiles. A street vendor offers you a curious treat, a pastry filled with orange blossom honey and almonds, its sweetness a perfect contrast to the
salty sea air.
You savour each bite, noting how Sicilian flavours are bold and unapologetically rich, much like the people themselves. Nearby, you overhear a debate among local fishermen about a mysterious shipwreck recently discovered off the coast. Some say it's a Roman galley, others insist it's a Viking longship lost to the waves centuries ago. Historians still argue whether Vikings ever truly ventured this far into the Mediterranean, or if the wreck is merely a case of mistaken identity. You chuckle quietly, remembering your own youthful voyages filled with equal parts courage and naivety. The idea that your kind might have sailed these waters is both flattering and slightly absurd. A Viking among olives and citrus groves. Later, you visit a small chapel adorned with mosaics depicting saints and mythic creatures side by side. This blending of faiths and folklore reminds you how cultures here have interwoven in unexpected, beautiful ways. A tapestry richer than any battle flag. As evening falls, you settle on a terrace overlooking the sea, the distant sound of waves mingling with soft laughter and music. You realize that your restless spirit has found a calm harbor in this land, a place where history and life continue to unfold in peaceful harmony. You rise early to the scent of baking bread drifting from the nearby bakery, the warm aroma mingling with the salty tang of the sea air. Walking through the quiet streets, you come across an elderly man sharpening a blade outside his workshop. His steady rhythm and focused expression remind you of the blacksmiths in your homeland, masters of craft and patience. You stop to watch as he shapes a small dagger, its curve elegant and functional. He tells you a story about Sicilian swordsmiths who once forged weapons for knights and warriors, blending artistry with deadly precision. Historians still argue whether Sicilian blades influenced Viking weaponry or if the exchange was purely coincidental. As you continue, you notice children playing a game resembling Nefertafel, the Viking board game of strategy and cunning. It's amusing to see echoes of your culture alive and well here, adapted and embraced by new generations. A quirky local insists that the game is a secret legacy of Viking settlers, though scholars debate this claim. Later, you visit a quiet chapel where the walls are adorned with intricate frescoes depicting saints in battle against mythical beasts. You reflect on how stories of heroism and faith transcend time and place, binding together distant peoples in shared themes. As dusk settles, the soft glow of lanterns guides your steps home, the familiar sounds and scents wrapping around you. Like a well-worn cloak, you smile, comforted by the blend of old and new in this city you now call home. You find yourself drawn to the hillside vineyards, where rows of grapevines ripple in the warm breeze like a green ocean. The sun dapples through olive trees, casting playful shadows on the dusty path. Walking among the vines, you feel a quiet reverence for the land, its ancient soil nurturing life much as it once did for the Romans and Greeks before them. A local vintner welcomes you with a glass of robust red wine, its flavors deep and complex. He shares how Sicily's winemaking traditions stretch back thousands of years, influenced by Phoenician settlers and later perfected by the Greeks. Historians still argue whether these ancient methods are the true roots of modern Mediterranean viticulture, or just one chapter in a long, layered story. You sip the wine slowly, savoring the taste and the connection to generations who walked this same land, harvesting its fruits under the blazing sun. A quirky detail catches your attention. Some vineyards still use ancient stone tools alongside modern equipment, a blend of old-world respect and new-world efficiency. As evening approaches, you watch the sun set behind Mount Etna, its silhouette a silent guardian over the fertile plains. You think about your own journey from a Viking longship's prow to this tranquil hillside and realize that sometimes the greatest adventures end in the soft glow of quiet moments. You rise with the first light, the air cool and crisp as you wander toward a small chapel perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. The ancient stones feel warm under your hand, softened by centuries of sun and salt spray. You take a moment to absorb the panoramic view, endless blue waves stretching toward the horizon, a reminder of all the voyages that brought people here. Inside, frescoes depict saints and warriors side by side, heroes of faith and battle interwoven in a tapestry of history. A local priest shares a curious legend that a Viking warrior once settled here, blessed by the church after renouncing his old ways. Historians still argue whether this tale is fact or folklore, but for you it resonates deeply. You reflect on your own transformation, from fierce raider to peaceful inhabitant, trading swords for prayers and raids for quiet contemplation. A quirky detail: the chapel's bell is said to ring itself on stormy nights, warning sailors of danger, though skeptics suggest wind and weather are the culprits. As the sun rises higher, you feel the weight of centuries settle around you, and in that stillness, a sense of belonging. The sea whispers its timeless song, and you are part of its endless story. You wander through a shaded grove of ancient olive trees, their twisted trunks and silvery leaves whispering secrets from centuries past. The scent of earth and fruit fills the air, mingling with the distant call of a cuckoo. You pick up a fallen olive, feeling the smoothness in your palm, a simple reminder of sustenance and tradition. A farmer nearby tells you how olives have been cultivated here since the time of the Greeks, their oil prized for food, medicine, and even lamp fuel. Historians still argue whether the introduction of olive cultivation to Sicily came primarily from Greek colonists or earlier Phoenician traders. As you stroll, you notice curious carvings on a nearby stone, symbols that some believe are Viking runes left by wandering Norsemen who once passed through. The scholarly debate rages on, but you like to imagine those hardy travelers marking their passage, bridging northern ice and Mediterranean sun. You chuckle, remembering your own stories of distant seas and colder lands, and how this warm grove became your unexpected sanctuary. The olive tree's resilience mirrors your own, rooted deeply, yet flexible enough to bend with the winds of change. As afternoon light filters through the leaves, you sit quietly, feeling the pulse of history beneath your feet and the promise of peace in your heart. You stroll through a small village square where locals gather for the weekly market, the air thick with the scent of fresh herbs, spices, and ripe citrus. The chatter blends with the clink of pottery and the occasional bark of a dog. You pause at a stall selling handmade ceramics, their vibrant colors reminiscent of the Mediterranean sun. A potter tells you how these ceramics have been crafted here. For centuries, influenced by Greek, Roman, and Arab artisans, each culture leaving its mark on the delicate patterns. Historians still argue whether the most iconic Sicilian styles originated from the Norman era or earlier Byzantine influences. You marvel at a small bowl decorated with a swirling motif that looks oddly familiar, like the intricate knotwork from your homeland's art. A quirky local jokes that maybe Vikings left more than just runes behind. Perhaps their artistry seeped into these designs too. As you wander further, you notice children playing a game resembling your old Viking pastimes. Though here, it's adapted to the rhythms of Sicilian life, a playful bridge between worlds. The market's lively spirit reminds you how cultures blend, creating something new yet rooted in the old. You smile, grateful for the unexpected harmony that has found its way into your life. You wander along the coastline as the sun dips low, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The sound of waves gently lapping against the rocky shore creates a soothing rhythm, almost like a lullaby whispered by the sea itself. You breathe in the salty air, feeling a profound sense of calm settle over you. Nearby, fishermen mend their nets, their hands weathered but sure. They speak of ancient maritime routes, how Sicily has long been a crossroads for traders, sailors, and yes, even Vikings who dared to sail these southern waters. Historians still argue whether Viking presence here was extensive or just brief, shadowy visits on their grand voyages. You watch a small boat slip silently into the water, its wooden hull creaking softly. A quirky tale emerges from the fishermen, a rumor that some Viking longships were transformed into fishing vessels after their owners embraced a quieter life. Whether true or legend, it speaks to the adaptability and resilience you recognize in yourself. As twilight deepens, the coastline glows under the first stars. You reflect on your own journey, from fierce warrior on northern seas to a man who chose peace and belonging on this ancient island. The sea's endless expanse reminds you that every ending is also a beginning, and every story, no matter how wild, finds a place to rest. You find yourself back in the quiet courtyard where your journey began, the night wrapping around you like a soft blanket. Lanterns flicker gently, casting dancing shadows on the worn stone walls. The air hums with the faint sounds of distant music and the occasional call of a night bird settling in for sleep. As you sit, you feel the full weight of your transformation. Once a Viking who sought conquest and glory, now a man who has found peace in the unexpected rhythms of Sicilian life. You recall the many tales, the strange legends, and the history that surrounds you, each a thread in the rich tapestry of this land. Historians still debate the true extent of Viking influence here, but you've learned that the heart of history isn't just about battles or dates. It's about connection, change, and the stories we carry within us. You think about the quiet mornings, the scent of olive groves, the laughter in markets, and the endless blue of the sea. You realize that in many ways your story is like the island itself, weathered by time but ever resilient, blending the fierce with the gentle, the old with the new. And now, as your eyes grow heavy and the world softens around you, you feel the comforting embrace of rest, knowing that your journey, like the sea, goes on even in dreams. The night deepens and the sounds around you grow softer, fading into a gentle hush. Your breath slows, matching the steady pulse of the earth beneath you. Imagine yourself lying under a vast sky where stars twinkle softly like distant fires, their light reaching you across time and space. Feel the cool night air brush against your skin, carrying with it the scent of olive blossoms and sea salt. The world narrows to this peaceful moment, quiet and still. Let the weight of the day lift away as you sink into the calm, each breath a soothing wave washing over you. The stories of Vikings and Sicilian shores blend seamlessly now, becoming part of your own rhythm, a gentle melody that hums softly in your mind. There is no need to rush or resist, only to rest and be carried gently by the night's embrace. As your eyes close, the island's soft lights fade into darkness, and the sea's endless song lulls you deeper. Know that here, in this quiet place between waking and dreaming, you are safe, you are whole, and you are at peace. Sleep well, and when you wake, carry this calm with you into the new day. End of script. Sweet dreams.